Hi, this is Andy Hoffman, Marketing Director of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. Miles Franklin is one of the nation's largest bullion dealers, in business since 1989, with not only an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating, but not a single registered complaint in our 26-year history. In a very competitive business, we distinguish ourselves with industry-leading customer service, from a sales force averaging 2 decades of precious metals experience, a unique storage program with Brinks Montreal, which we believe is the industry's safest and most practical and cost-effective, and perhaps the best free economic blog on the planet. That said, there are other aspects to our business than simple retail bullion sales, some of which are not readily apparent to the average investor, which is what we are here to discuss today. For the title of today's article, Swaps, Trades, and Repatriations, there are many ways to optimize one's precious metals portfolio in terms of tax strategy, numismatic opportunities, and logistics. Few dealers have been so prominent in this vital area as Miles Franklin, not just in the seamless, cost-effective execution of such, but communication to the public regarding how to prepare for and effect such transactions. Which is why I'm happy to have our firm's co-founder and president, Andy Schectman, here for a second informational podcast. The first, by the way, was conducted last October, discussing the unique aspects of our Brinks Montreal storage program, which you can watch for free by Googling Brinks Montreal Storage Program Interview with Miles Franklin's President, Andy Schectman. In it, Andy answers every imaginable how-to and why question regarding the program, just as we hope to accomplish with today's topic. To that end, I'd like to introduce Andy, who not only has been buying, selling, and precious metals and trading precious metals for 26 years, not to mention Swiss annuities, but doing so with many of the same brokers that were working with us when the firm first opened its doors in 1989. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm good, Andy. Thanks for having me, and thanks for setting this up.
Absolutely. And let's get right to it. The first type of trade we're going to speak of is a gold for silver, or for that matter, platinum swap. Sometimes these swaps are executed simply to take advantage of the perceived mispricing of one asset versus another. The most popular in recent years being the sale of gold to purchase silver, given what many people, myself included, view as an historically undervalued silver to gold ratio. Other times, the motive is purely tax-related, that is, to take a loss in one monetary metal with the intent of immediately reinvesting in the other. And thus, I'm going to ask Andy to explain the tax ramifications of such transactions, particularly regarding the fact that they are decidedly not considered wash sales, even if the reinvestment is immediate. Andy, please discuss the tax implications of, for instance, selling gold to buy silver, with the caveat, of course, that we are not financial advisors, so before taking any such actions, we advise you to consult with your accountant.
Okay, well, first of all, Andy, good question, one that we're asked very often. And the 30-day wash rule, first and foremost, does not apply to the sale of precious metals. So when you're selling one stock and taking a loss on it, you're not allowed to buy it or anything similar back for 30 days. That is the security 30-day wash rule. That does not apply to precious metals. So when you talk of wash sale, typically that speaks of buying something similar or the same thing, selling gold for gold or silver for silver. So you're right, this does not qualify as a wash sale. And I would tell you that although most of the metals have some sort of symmetry and movement throughout history, very often there's a lag time between the two, as you speak of right now, between gold and silver, that inequity of 72 to 1 or somewhere in that neighborhood where we are right now does represent a good opportunity for people to trade gold for silver. And the way that we look at it is that that gold is a blank check. We do not charge a commission to buy back the gold. We'll give people the highest bid price in the country for whatever the value is at the moment of the gold they're trading, for whatever it is that they want to buy, silver or platinum. Both, in my opinion, are rather undervalued right now in relation to gold. But yeah, they trade the metal. They send it back through the registered mail system. We apply the supplemental insurance, and in many cases we can even send the boxes and the packing material, and of course give detailed instructions on how to securely mail that back. In the 25-plus years that we've done this, we've never seen a lost package by registered mail. But it's really that simple. We just confirm both sides of the trade at the time we discuss. We buy the gold and from the client and sell them the silver or the platinum. We assist in mailing it back and insuring the package, and it's really that simple. be honest with you, Andy.
And if you could just add one more put to that point, I think a lot of people are worried about sending things in the mail because they think, well, hey, I'm sending $100,000 worth in the mail. Isn't the post office going to know this, and aren't I at risk of having it stolen?
Sure, anonymity is something that we understand and focus on here. The post office will insure a package maximum for $25,000, and the only thing that they want to know is it dangerous or flammable or hazardous in any form? Is there liquid or anything that could combust? The three questions that they ask you right when you send any package. If the answer to those is no, that's the last question they ask. When you insure a package for their postal insurance limit of $25,000, they don't ask you what's inside the package, and if they do, you can tell them it's none of your business. So the bottom line is if you've answered the questions and there's nothing dangerous or flammable inside the package, then you can insure it for whatever you'd like. The maximum the post office will insure a package for is $25,000, and the way that we get around that is that as soon as you walk out of the post office with a tracking number and a registered number, you give us a call, tell us the contents of the box and what you've insured it for already through the post office, and we put the supplemental insurance. So if someone had sent us $150,000 worth of gold eagles for a trade, the post office will insure it for $25,000, and we supplementally insure the other $125,000, therefore insuring the package in total for $150,000. In the eyes of the post office, they see an insured package for $25,000 that isn't hazardous in any way, and that's where the disclosure ends. And again, this is as safe as it's going to get in transporting or using a courier system to send your gold, in that we've never seen a lost package from us to a client or vice versa in over 25 years.
Great. Well, next up I wanted to speak of precious metal numismatics. First, of our firm's view of them in general, and second, what kind of opportunities may exist to optimize your portfolio, for instance, adding significant appreciation potential at little or no incremental cost. And thus, before I ask Andy the how-to portion of the question, I want to emphasize that Miles Franklin, as a rule, is extremely wary of precious metal numismatics, given that not only are their costs typically higher than standard bullion coins, but a significant percentage of their value is often based purely on subjective factors, above and beyond the intrinsic value of the underlying bullion metal. This is particularly so for so-called authenticated products, which often have little or no numismatic properties otherwise, as opposed to, for instance, century-old limited edition coins, which also have significant levels of value subjectivity, but at least are either scarce or otherwise unique. In many ways, I liken numismatics to baseball cards, particularly those with significant amounts of subjective value, and thus we only recommend their purchase to experts and or people ready and willing to take on extreme speculative risks. That said, let's ask the expert about his views on numismatics and the type of opportunities he has seen and expects to see in the future. Andy, tell us under what circumstances you would recommend numismatic purchases or sales to clients. And
Sure.
if possible, give some background on the three main categories: limited editions, old and or scarce coins, and officially authenticated products.
Okay, well, first and foremost, I wouldn't buy anything that's new and called a numismatic. I mean, if it's within the last 15 or 20 years, to buy it in a certified MS-69, MS-70 grade, to me, is putting earrings on a pig. I think that if you're going to buy numismatic, it must be pre-1933 United States minted. Anything else, in my opinion, you'll never get your money out of it. There are a lot of companies who certify common brand new issue coins, and I think that is the biggest possible mistake you can make in this industry, to spend a lot of money on a new coin that is supposedly MS-69 or 70. Without getting too deep into it, anything that comes out of the current mints should be MS-69 or MS-70. Out of 500 coins, if you were to send 500 brand new American Eagles out of a mint box to PCGS for certification, 475 ought to come back MS-69 and the rest MS-70. So to buy modern mint stuff in certified grade called numismatic is probably mistake number one that I see happening in the industry nowadays. When we talk about numismatics, to me, the only thing I think of are gold coins minted prior to 1933 in the United States. And there are several reasons I feel that, in particular as it relates to confiscation. With that being said, you have two different ways to go about buying pre-33 numismatic coins. You can buy uncirculated or you can buy circulated. Typically speaking, both will carry a significant premium to the melt value or to a modern minted bullion coin. That's not the case right now, as we've seen a tremendous pullback in premium on numismatics. And right now, circulated $20 gold pieces and $10 gold pieces are as fine of an opportunity, as strong as an opportunity to buy as I've seen in 25 years. With that being said, the certified coins, the old ones, the old pre-1933 mint state certified coins, while those too have come down in price, I still think that I would choose bullion over those coins because of the premiums that are still built into them. It is my contention that in this industry, in this market, in this environment, it's about number of ounces that matter more than anything else. You want to have as much gold as you possibly can, and you can achieve that with circulated $20 gold pieces right now, as they're basically the same price as a gold eagle, something I've never seen before, ever. And I hold a great deal of significance in the value of the circulated $20 gold piece. And my concern is that as these circulated $20 gold pieces have lost so much premium, when I'm talking hundreds of dollars of premium that we saw a few years ago that has now evaporated, I see the same thing happening in the certified stuff. So without trying to muddy the waters too much, I find great value in circulated coins to be acquiring them, and I could make a very strong argument for higher grade numismatic coins. Right now is a good time to trade them, whether it be for bullion or lower grade stuff, to walk away with more ounces and to strip away that premium that I believe will evaporate, as it has in the circulated coins and has been slowly doing so in the certified coins as well. I'll give you an example. In 2008, Andy, with a $1,000 gold price, I was paying $1,500 for a circulated AU grade $20 Liberty, and maybe $1,600 or $1,700 for a mint state 63. So I was paying 50 to 70% premiums for stuff that right now is trading at a few 2 to 5% on circulated, and maybe 7 to 10% over melt value on a mint state 63. So all of that premium that was fear-based, that was there because perhaps people, the perceived threat of confiscation when Obama had just recently taken office was so strong that premiums nationwide got so high, I told every one of my clients to sell and switch to bullion. Well, as is the case in investments very often, when things get overvalued and finally do correct, they go through fair value to undervalue. That is where we are right now, I think, on the circulated coins. They have become undervalued. They are the least expensive I've ever seen them in 25 years in relation to gold bullion. There still is a little bit of that premium in the certified coins, and I guess the question someone would need to ask themselves is, do we see the economy getting better? If yes, then perhaps you hang on to them. Do we see the separation between the classes growing or narrowing? And if the answer is narrowing, then maybe you hang on to them. But if you think things are going to get bleaker before they get better, and we see a continued separation of wealth between the classes, then to me it's about stripping away the premium and applying that to the real thing, getting as many ounces as possible. And although I would much rather sell numismatics and talk about them not only because they're fascinating, 100-plus-year-old piece of history, but I can make a lot more money selling them in an industry that has seen margins go to nearly, 1% or so in order to remain competitive. You can sell numismatics at 3 or 4 and beat anyone in the country. I could. So I have to do 4 times as much business selling bullion as I do numismatics. With that being said, Andy, I don't think it's the path to success right now. Bottom line is simply this: stay away from modern minted numismatics. Take a look at pre-33 circulated numismatics or semi-numismatics, as right now it's basically the same thing as buying bullion. And if you own certified uncirculated pre-33 numismatics, consider the wisdom of stripping away that premium by selling them and walking away with more gold and no subjectivity in your portfolio. That's very important, in my opinion, is having a portfolio that is rich in liquidity and minimize the subjectivity. You can do that by owning bullion, and I think now is the time to squeeze that premium out before I think it goes to its intrinsic value and disappears in total.
Well, that was a very thorough answer, so I'm not going to add anything to it. And I think people should really listen to that part of this conversation at least once, if not twice, to understand how important it is that you understand the risks of numismatics, but also the opportunities. Now, next we're going to discuss the options people have when considering the opening or transferring of a precious metals IRA. Andy, please tell people the types of precious metal IRA transactions Miles Franklin can help clients with, from opening a new account to transferring an existing account.
Sure. So precious metals IRA is actually a pretty neat program for those people who embrace IRAs and own IRAs. And I say it that way because a lot of the people who have read you and I before know that we sold our IRAs to get out of the system, as a lot of our clients feel being out of the system is perhaps the best approach. But truth be told, that's unrealistic to apply that as a blanket strategy. There are a lot of people who see wisdom in IRAs, and we're not here to talk them out of that. Simply to say, if you have an IRA and you'd like to have exposure to precious metals, I happen to think that the program is a unique one and one worth exploring in the respect that the precious metals IRA is unique in its ability to take an in-kind distribution. So it works like this. If you have an existing IRA, you can transfer a portion of it or roll over the entire IRA or start one from scratch. Purchase physical gold or silver or platinum or palladium, any form of bullion in those four items can be purchased and held in a custodian's vault, whether it be Delaware Depository or Diamond State Depository or Dakota Depository. There are a myriad of choices, or Brinks, Los Angeles. There's many, many different vaulting systems that are IRA approved. You purchase the metal, you have it stored in a vault, and then through distribution, you can take possession of the metal, whether it be a voluntary distribution, right after you set up the account, or a mandatory distribution when you're 70 and a half years old. The bottom line is if you believe enough in holding the metal as part of your IRA, the ability to actually physically take possession of it in the form of a distribution is neat. What I mean by that is when you're 70 and a half, you're forced to take a distribution, a mandatory distribution. Most people would think, well, you sell the investment and you get a check from the custodian. And in truth, that is the most common way of taking a distribution, of course. But you can actually say, I would like to take an in-kind distribution this time, and say, send me some of my gold eagles or my silver eagles or my palladium maple leafs or my platinum koalas, whatever it is that you're holding in your IRA, you can actually physically distribute in the form of a mandatory or voluntary distribution. For that reason, I like the precious metals IRA, and in particular, our older clients who have an IRA and they're nearing retirement and or distribution phase, transferring an underperforming or a cash account in an IRA to a precious metals IRA, funding it with gold and silver coins, and then taking distributions in kind is a neat way to make a bigger splash in the gold pool without writing out a big check. So I think it's a neat program, Andy.
Well, excellent. So now let's move on to the realm of repatriations, which in the simplest term involves the movement of metal from one storage facility to another, often in one form, such as a paper certificate, to another, like physical coins or bars. There are many reasons why such transactions are undertaken, which we plan on discussing today. Generally speaking, the main motivating factors behind such transactions are to move your bullion from a facility, jurisdiction, or storage program deemed less safe, reliable, or cost-effective to one that better suits one's specific needs. At Miles Franklin, we specialize in executing such transactions, and in recent years, the most common repatriation trade has involved moving overseas bullion to our Brinks Vault in Montreal. The reasons for doing so are broad, such as the Brinks Vault's logistically more practical location for U.S. and Canadian clients, its completely segregated nature, in which Miles Franklin's officers personally observe regularly scheduled audits, and of course, the fact that it is one of the only, if not the only, storage programs to charge not by bullion value, but on a per-ounce basis. Additionally, we have done swaps for people worried that increasingly unfriendly switch storage regulations will inevitably cause all American clients to be rejected, as was the case 2 years ago when one of the world's largest precious metal vault operators, Viamat, ejected American clients due to fears of U.S. regulatory interference, which, by the way, we discussed in our February 2013 article, Ramifications of the Viamat PM Storage Announcement. And last but not least, many people holding paper certificates representing physical gold or silver ownership, such as, for instance, Perth Mint certificates, have converted their certificates to bullion and repatriated their holdings to our Brinks Montreal Vault, using Miles Franklin as the facilitator. That said, let's ask Andy how such transactions are enacted and the costs involved. Andy, if one were to repatriate precious metal holdings to our Brinks Montreal facility, or for that matter, our Dakota Depository facility in Fargo, North Dakota, how would they go about doing so, and what would it cost?
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to answer that question in two parts, the second part being the Perth Mint certificate form. But for those people who own physical metal around the globe, we can arrange with Brinks Logistics in Manhattan to get a quote picked up at a bank or an institution in Zurich or wherever the metal is being held, and get a quote within 24 hours of what it would cost to ship it either to North Dakota, the Dakota Depository, or directly up to Montreal with Brinks. And typically our quote will be as cheap as anything they'll ever find on that end. So when I have people who have accounts in Zurich who ask the bank who's holding the metal to get a quote, it's typically within dollars of the quote we will get from Brinks. This is not a money-making deal for us. We don't make any money on the storage part of it. We do it as part of the service. So the bottom line is, if you have physical metal being held in a vault or in a bank in Zurich or in any part of Europe or Asia, we are able to get a quote from Brinks, a binding quote to transport it wherever you'd like, and then actually work with the institution to get it picked up and delivered securely. This is something we do all the time, and certainly got our experience in doing this with Viamet over the last few years. As you mentioned, they did kick out Americans, probably because of the FACTA reporting, and it's something we've become very proficient at. Truth be told, we've been doing things like this for over 20 years with a very strong background in dealing with Swiss investments, and so we've been bringing money home in one fashion or another from Zurich for over 2 decades. As far as the Perth Mint certificate is concerned, what I'll tell you is that it's been my experience. In all of the years I've done this, I've seen one client who actually owned things in a segregated account in Perth. Only one. And maybe 100 who have owned a pooled certificate. 99.9% of the people who own metal in Perth own it in a right-to-claim basis or a pooled account versus segregated. And so the one segregated account that I did move out of Perth was just as I just mentioned. We got a quote from Brinks. Brinks picked it up in Perth and delivered it directly to Brinks Montreal, and as competitive of a quote, in fact even more so than the folks at Perth offered us to do the same through another carrier. But if you own a certificate, then that's something that we can do for you through a 1031 exchange, and this is a little bit more convoluted, where it's a like-for-like exchange using a transfer agent. And this is something where people are going to need to employ their accountant and tax advice. It is my belief that we can do a like-for-like exchange utilizing a transfer agent, which basically means the funds are sold or the account is liquidated, the funds are then transferred back through a transfer agent, meaning the client never touches the metal, or the money rather, and then we can purchase for the client whatever it is that they want, as long as it's apples to apples. So if they sold a $100,000 Perth certificate, they could buy $100,000 worth of gold utilizing the assistance of a transfer agent, so they don't ever touch the money, and then the fund is sent directly up to Montreal, or the coins then sent directly to Montreal. That would qualify as a 1031 like-for-like exchange. Otherwise, you just simply cash out the certificate, pay the taxes, and then purchase whatever you'd like and send it up. So the one thing to keep in mind is that I think most people are under the misconception who own Perth certificates that they actually own physical coins. Unallocated account is a fractional interest in a larger piece of gold or silver, and so in order to actually have an allocated account in Perth from an unallocated account, you'd pay, I believe, a 5% fabrication fee, meaning you don't actually own physical coins, you own a piece of a big bar. And so it becomes a little bit more of a challenge in repatriating and converting. It actually, in most cases, is looked upon as a sale and a subsequent repurchase. So physical held gold throughout the world is a piece of cake for us. We just get a quote to get it shipped back. If it's a certificate form, it's more of a transaction. It's a sale and a repurchase. There are ways to do a 1031 like for like, but it's a little bit more complex. We can assist in whatever the client decides to do, and a case-by-case example, it's probably best to give us a call and run by the options.
Okay. And are there any parts of the world where we cannot facilitate such transactions, and from which regions are the transportation costs the most and least onerous?
I haven't really had any problems getting it out of anywhere. I've imported gold from Central America. I've imported gold from Australia, New Zealand, Western Europe. Of course, sending it out to Central America, South America is something that's a little bit more difficult. But in general, the further away you get from North America or Canada, or in this case the Dakota Depository, the further the expenses, or the greater the expenses. So far, the greatest expense that we have incurred has been through Australia and New Zealand. But in general, the costs, in my opinion, are pretty small to move an awful lot of gold or silver in an insured fashion. We just did about $1.3 million worth of gold in one transaction out of Zurich for about $2,100 or $2,200. So it's not that much money to move an awful lot of stuff insured. But needless to say, the most important thing is that it's done safely and securely, and we work with Brinks, and whatever quote they give us is as sharp of a quote as you'll find.
Okay. And before we go, Andy, do you have any final thoughts in general regarding the various types of swap, trade, and repatriation transactions Miles Franklin specializes in?
Anything out of a European bank is something that we will be very, very proficient in. Any type of physical account, really, in anywhere in Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, even for that matter, Central or South America, we should have no problem in getting it out. Getting it back is a lot easier in some cases than getting it into these countries because of customs and duties and import laws and security reasons that we find harder to deal with going in than coming back. So if anyone has an account in Europe, that would be our bread and butter. And of course, pooled accounts in Australia we can help with. But really, I think the further away, the little bit more complex we get. But swaps and trades and bringing stuff back from foreign accounts is something that we can make pretty easy. In any of the cases, it is our effort to minimize the effort by the client, and we do all the heavy lifting, and in most cases it just requires a signature. The rest we do and arrange.
Well, thanks again, Andy. And to our listening audience, we hope this podcast gave you further clarity regarding not only Miles Franklin's capabilities, but the myriad ways in which one can optimize their precious metal portfolios. If you have any questions, please call us at 800-822-8080. And as always, you're welcome to email me at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com. Thanks very much.